It stands at the western gateway to downtown Toronto. It's almost 50 years old, yet it still looks like nothing else in the city. This is Ontario Place. Ontario Place was built as a park for the people. And for many of us, it's got an immense amount of nostalgia. Today, the future of Ontario Place is uncertain. A key part of Toronto's waterfront, its value to the people of the province is enormous. But what's going to take form on this site is now in question. We could talk about the many architectural awards the space has won, the world-class concerts, the millions of visitors, the great food and spaces for children. But first, let's talk about where and what Ontario Place is. In the summer of 1968, the PC Premier of Ontario, John Robarts, announced the government's intention to build something new, exciting and groundbreaking in Toronto to celebrate, as he put it, the mood of gaiety and openness of the province, something that would make our imagination soar. Starting in the 1920s, the Ontario Government Building at the CNE was the main source of Ontario celebration and promotion. But they wanted something new. Montreal's Expo 67 had just been a phenomenal international success. Ontario wanted a place of its own. The province chose the German-born architect, Eb Seidler, to man the helms. But where would it go?
Originally, Ontario Place was to be on the ground of the exhibition place. But however, we felt that if the project should present Ontario, it should be put into Lake Ontario.
The land where Ontario Place stands was simply part of Lake Ontario. The concept of building a large-scale project on top of the water was gutsy, complicated, and new. Here is a hand-drawn sketch of the space by Seidler. Here's the first formal architectural plan for the space. To Seidler, the space was meant to be an accessible recreational space for all people, not just for exhibitions or profit. A park for the people of Toronto and beyond. The practicality of the project was complex. After a visit to the Caribbean by Seidler, he realized the usefulness of a large breakwater being used to the south of the space. The construction teams would intentionally sink 3 Great Lakes shipping boats, limiting substantial wind and water perforation upon the pods and Cinesphere. Seemingly floating in the air, the 5 interconnected pavilions behind me were the architectural centerpiece of the entire project. The suspended pods were built with Ontario steel. Each 8,000 square foot structure was designed for flexibility of use and could be covered with either glass or steel. Modular ramps and bridges were built to connect the pods. The enormous pods were designed for easy reproduction, so the group of 5 could potentially grow in number. The other main building under construction was a 35-meter wide triodetic dome called the Cinesphere. Surrounded by a moat, it would house the world's first permanent IMAX theater. Inside, the architects engineered a curved screen to maximize the impact of the revolutionary IMAX projector. A 24-track, 400-speaker audio system was installed. People from all over the continent would go to the Cinesphere behind me. It was the very first IMAX theater in the entire world. The Cinesphere, or the Bubble, or the Golf Ball as many would refer to it, would win international acclaim, and after a substantial refurbishment in 2010-2011, the space is back in fine form and as of 2017, back to showing blockbuster films to the public. The Forum was built as an outdoor venue designed for live performances. A hyperbolic roof would cover a revolving stage. Bench seating for 2,500 people was installed, and there was room for 8,000 on the grassy hills molded around it, as well as a fully functioning marina. The buildings and design of Ontario Place were only part of the puzzle. Landscape architect Michael Huff worked thoughtfully with Seidler to truly consider the layout and atmosphere of the project. The landscaping of the space, to many, was equally as important. On May 22, 1971, Ontario Place opened, on time and under budget. 2.5 million visitors would come that year, all experiencing the Ontario-focused exhibits. The price of admission was $1 for adults and 50 cents for kids. In 1972, a young British-born designer, Eric Macmillan, would be given the chance to design and create something that would be named the Children's Village. It was groundbreaking at the time and would lead to a lengthy and successful career for Macmillan, with Time magazine at one point calling him the next Walt Disney. Children's Village was a huge success, as were many of the subsequent children's activities constructed on the space for the following 3 decades. The ball crawl, the net climb, the punch bag forest, birdie glide, foam swamp, cave crawl, legendary activities in their own right. The water parks would be incorporated in the late 1970s and would take on different incarnations through the years. Bumper boats, Ontario North Now's water slide mountain rides, kayaks. The space had everything to do with the lake, yet felt grounded.
The next performance in Cinesphere begins in approximately 10 minutes. May we suggest you proceed to Cinesphere now to ensure a good seat for this showing. With the lunch hour approaching, may we invite you to dine with us at Ontario Place. Our facilities include 18 fine restaurants offering a full variety in both menu and price.
For adults, there were bars and restaurants, and of course, the Forum. Bruce Cockburn, Burton Cummings, Johnny Cash, Blue Rodeo, B.B. King, Blondie, Tragically Hip, and hundreds of others. The Forum also regularly hosted the Toronto Symphony and other international orchestras. And for 3 years, a jazz festival ran there. On June 2, 1980, the Forum became the site of the Toronto punk rock riot. An overbooked Teenage Head concert at the Forum caused a riot and provoked a ban on hard rock music within the park for years. Thousands of fans of the Hamilton-based band hurled objects at the police, tried to swim onto the grounds, with dozens of arrests and charges laid, making that Teenage Head's second most famous Toronto riot, the first being at the Horseshoe Tavern a year and a half prior. In the winter of 94-95, the beloved Forum would be demolished and a brand new corporate-owned venue would be built. The Molson Amphitheatre, now known as the Budweiser Stage, still stands there today with hundreds of thousands of visitors per year, as well as the new Echo Beach venue on the grounds. The rest of the old Ontario Place grounds haven't done quite as well through the years. In 2011, with attendance down, Ontario Place closed. Its status has been in limbo for many years now. Still, the Cinesphere and the Pods are one of the most recognizable buildings in the city, and they haven't been forgotten. Ontario Place was heavily awarded at the time of its opening. In the last decade, 40 years after construction, its ongoing design significance has been recognized by the Ontario Association of Architects, the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada, the National Trust for Canada, and by the International Council of Monuments and Sites. In 2017, the Ontario government declared the property a cultural heritage landscape of provincial significance, a provincial process akin to municipal heritage designation. In 2017, the face and energy of the Ontario Place grounds was substantially improved with the opening of the beautiful new Trillium Park. The brand new and now award-winning provincial park includes the William G. Davis Trail along the waterfront, 1,200 new trees planted, 28,000 new diverse shrubs, and with the help of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, a ravine with moccasin identifier at the entrance to the park.
That's the stencil that is at the Ontario Place entrance. It's an Anishinaabe stencil. We're Ojibwe, Mississauga is Ojibwe, and that you see the center seam. That center seam is described describes the people. Ojibwe means gathered up, puckered seam. Not everyone can do that, say that their footwear identifies them, but this one does.
I am currently standing in the brand new $30 million Trillium Park. It's got about 1.5 kilometers of trail along the water. It's got a beautiful view of downtown, a cool view of the airport. They have fire pits you can rent with your friends. And last year, over 1.2 million visitors came to a space that, until recently, was a parking lot. A lot of criticism of Ontario Place has revolved around it no longer being a family-oriented space. But with the new opening of Trillium Park in 2017 and over 1 million visitors last year, that claim has definitely been silenced.